But I want to begin by recounting one of my favorite accounts from church history. It's Gregory of Nyssa's account of how the discussion of the divinity of Jesus at the time was the talk of the town. He said, at the baths, at the clothes seller, if you were to go to the clothes seller to inquire about the quality and price of bread, the baker would reply, the Father is the greatest and the Son is subject to him. It was the same at the baths, it was the same at the money changers. I felt like this was a good description of my life at the farmer's market over the summer. I've lived in my neighborhood for more than 20 years, and so a trip to the farmer's market involves catching up with neighbors and parishioners and friends. And as the crisis began to unfold, I would find myself in the middle of the market, listening to an angry, frustrated, broken-hearted Catholic. When I went to get my cheese, the owner of the cheese stand said, "Don't you work for the church? You can't be happy these days." In one case, I had one arm out of the swimming pool, and a person stopped me and said, "I just have to tell you something about what I think about what's going on." And generally, after a long conversation that kind of meandered, it would end with things like, this is what we need to do. Women need to be priests. The church needs to stop being hung up on sex and just get over it. Priests need to marry. Bishops should have to report to lay people. And so juggling my Brussels sprouts and my potatoes and my steaks, I found myself wanting to say, in my best imitation of Peter, you know, it's been weeks since I've worked at the Archdiocese of Washington. As if somehow this would make me a completely disinterested party to what was going on. But what I found myself having to say is, it is really awful, and it is really sad, and it is really complicated. And then I would walk away and say, well, what makes it complicated? What is really going on? And so I think this is a particularly relevant phrase to begin our discussion today, because unlike in 2002, when it became clear what that crisis was, and people were rightly horrified that children and vulnerable people were being abused by priests and by employees of the Catholic Church, in some ways, it was clear what needed to be done. We needed to be able to make sure the people we were hiring and the priests who were serving us had clear background checks. We needed to care for victims, both spiritually and emotionally. We needed to remove abusers from ministry. We needed to address these problems through civil and canon law. And with the implementation of the Dallas Charter, we were able to do these things, and structures were put in place that have, when it's been followed, been working for the better. But the crisis of this past summer of 2018 has brought to light much deeper and more complex issues related to cultures that exist within the church. The culture of clericalism, the culture of a lack of transparency. In some cases, these things have existed for a long time, and we've learned to live with them. And then there's the misuse of power, a series of inappropriate relationships, rumor and innuendo that go unchecked. These are questions that raise issues that don't seem to have such clear-cut fixes.